inter-tier as well as intra-tier. So, yes?
So, in SP 800, you will be covering the organization risk as well.
Yes, it is
Okay.
integrated enterprise-wise risk management strategy. This is what I am showing you.
Okay. So if you're taking a one application or one product for a organization, then you'll be discussing first of all organization risk regarding that product, and then you'll be going into the processes and then related technology.
Yeah, it's just like that. Anything starts from the top.
Okay.
Like this is our business. This is what we want to do.
Right.
And that defines where to invest and where to stop, where to spend time and money,
Yes.
right? So if that business function has been identified to be critical,
Right.
so anything related to that may have value. And that is the second step. Okay, this asset is related to this business function. What are the risks associated with this asset? For example, one application or business process or whatever it is. And that links down to the system itself.
Okay. The same goes for 2005, ISO 2005.
Yes, I will be talking a little about it later on.
Perfect.
But this is just to give you, because I was talking about enterprise risk, so that is why it was a good example to show that explicitly talk about integrating the risk management activities enterprise-wide. Besides this, there are several other standards and best practices available. One of them is ISO 27001, that is available information security risk management. So this provides you guidelines of information security risk management. The next one is ISO 31000, and that also provides principles and guidelines for risk management. Next step is, the first step is define process to regulate technology, and that is one of the important things because that is something that is lacking most of the time. The people might be knowing what their security needs are, they might be having risk assessment done, but they lack in processes that may regulate the technology that they are using. I will take example here, what is involved in defining the process to regulate technology. We have seen examples like Abid was sharing with you earlier on with different technology, but in general, talking about it, if you don't identify an owner, who is the owner of this technology in this organization? Like, we are buying an assigned tool, so is it going to be held by infrastructure team or the security team or compliance team? So someone has to be the owner of that tool or technology. Assign responsibility. Okay, this is the owner, but there are different group of people or individuals who have their specified responsibility. So they are responsible for doing certain things. Compliance team has its own set of responsibility related to this technology. IT infrastructure team has its own responsibility, and security team has its own responsibility. So you assign responsibility to different groups and individuals as desired by the organization. The next step is check for compliance. Are they doing as they are expected to do it? Are they using this technology as they are expected to? And the third one is measure performance. Are you getting the results? Are you getting the results as desired, like we talked about certain KPIs, key performance indicators? So are they achieving those key KPIs that were set for them, for security, for compliance, for infrastructure? Then identify improvements based on compliance issues and or based on performance measurements. You may identify what can be improved. Maybe it's an improvement in the process, or maybe it's improvement in the infrastructure, maybe it's improvement in the way you are using it. And most importantly, someone has to keep an eye on what is happening within the team, outside the team, with the management. You have to report the results of usage of this technology to all relevant stakeholders as appropriate. So this is what is involved in defining process to regulate technology, and that basically integrates what the process with the technology itself. One of the example I will take here. So I'm used to a different pointer, so I press the wrong button usually. Anyways, an example here is acquire and implement SIEM tool. And the process you might be needing to have in place to regulate the function of this tool is having a log management procedure in place, log review procedure in place. You should have a staffing structure in place. You should have a segregation of duties. Like administrators' log are not going to be reviewed by the administrators themselves, someone else. And similarly, other things. Incident management. Based on this tool, you might be having something identified that needs to be taken care of. So what is the escalation procedure for that? What is the hierarchy of escalation? Who should know it? What needs to be done? How soon you can recover from the situation? So all this part of incident management. And next one is,
So can we take this example, like if some organization is running ERP, right? So most of the modules of ERP owned by some different departments in the organization, like finance or HR. So the data ownership and the process ownership goes for specific departments like HR or finance. But the technology owner is IT all the time, right? So can we, at this point of time, can we discuss this example? Right? Is it okay with you guys, like for technology ownership, because we are talking about technology specifically. So technology goes for the IT, but the other things for the process ownership goes to different departments. So can we take it this way?
basically, when we talk about like a solution like ERP, we are talking about business tool.
Exactly.
We are not talking about a tool that helps you implement a control.
Okay.
So our focus here was
Right.
implementing a control. But I can talk about this, what
Yeah.
you have just mentioned.
Okay.
So what we are talking about here in this presentation is about the technology that is used to control the risk associated with the cybersecurity.
Right.
Answer to your question, like if there is an ERP and there are different business functions who are the users and possibly
Or
the
the
business
process
owners,
owners.
the
Yeah.
owners of those modules or applications as well. IT works as a custodian, right? So they are not involved in managing access rights and managing transaction in that application or other thing. Those business functions are, right? What they are responsible for? Ensuring it is available, ensuring it's backed up, ensuring it's available on the net or on the network. So that is what their responsibility
And
is.
secure, of course.
So, sorry?
Security-wise as well.
Yeah. You can say security wise or what is their operation liabilities.
Or technology management.
Yes.
Even SIME should cover that ERP infrastructure, the hardware,
Yeah.
software,
Yeah.
access, everything.
Definitely.
So any breach
So
in
that
that
part-
should be reported through SIME.
As said by someone from here, my colleague here, technology management. This is what the IT people are
And
responsible
segregation of duties cover that.
for. Yeah. Application management or application user is basically owned by the business users.
Can I explain this in a business environment, please, in a couple of minutes? Actually, the ownership always goes with the, that profit and loss thing. So that if you are talking about enterprise ERP system, so that ownership will always be with the business. But when it comes to the implementing the controls, again, the ownership of the controls will be defined by a security matrix from the business people. They will pass on a security matrix to IT and IT and IT security, and they will implement it and ensure that the access rights are the way they are supposed to be.
Very right. For example, what I've seen at Aramco was that in SAP, their ERP solution, what they have is that they are supposed to define the roles, and they have classified roles. Like this is a confidential role, and this kind of user can have access to this role in this application, and these are the functions he can execute. These are the kind of transaction he can make. But this is coming from the business user.
And unfortunately, this is the case, as you know that in his presentation, Abid said earlier that when it comes to the security, everybody thinks that is the responsibility of the security team. Now again, it is the responsibility of the security team to ensure that whatever the business wants, they should not be caring about that. Whatever the business wants to give the access to some person, the IT security should be ensuring that same kind of access is to be granted.
This is what our subject is.
I
That
should I also want to highlight one more important point. I agree that there is a segregation between the business users and IT. But having said that, the potential issue is also because in most of the organizations, IT and security are also integrated.
Okay, yeah, you
And
can.
the role of IT is actually facilitation,
That's
and the
where
role of security is the watchguard.
Yeah, again, you can say that basically, again, if you put that, IT is a word which is being used with security.
Exactly.
Right?
True.
Not necessarily security should be in IT.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Agreed.
And one other thing, that's one of the reasons that we are using a beautiful word, custodian.
Yes.
Who is custodian? By definition, the someone who works on behalf of the owner.
Yes.
The only thing I want to add to that is that there's some things like technical controls and security controls, which the business users would be completely unaware of. They do not know how to keep a system secure. They can tell you what access rights to grant to different people or what business processes or controls to implement from business perspective, but not the security infrastructure. That is the responsibility of the custodian.
Again, Ali, you know that's very subjective thing.
Yeah.
When it comes to the security, believe me, owner knows that what is to be protected. आप
No,
किसी
the assets can be identified, but
Yeah.
they would not know how to put it in, say, a DNZ or whatever. That's
they
what
will
the-
tell in their business language, or
Yeah,
they
yeah.
will tell those things in a common language
Yeah.
to a security professional. That person will explain.
This is
That's one of the
basically
reasons
what
that
we were talking about in the beginning, like
Yeah.
when we are talking about risk assessment, and we are talking to the top to the bottom, from strategy
I
to
want to know
technical.
that. I want to explain.
They would
this.
understand that, okay, which application is important, what data in this application is important, what transaction needs to be taken care of, and things all. So they will identify all the risk associated, and they will apply or identify controls as appropriate. They could be related to access, they could be related to backups, they could be related to connectivity, whatever it is.
I wanted to explain just due to that normally, that there is a misconception in these days that these security people, they are showstoppers. They are showstoppers. So that's where the problem is.
Yeah, we are. Security is an overhead. Business process always think like that.
But if they are linked, if they are, like
But
I showed you an example of
Again, the thing is that they are willing to lose $1,000, but they are not willing to spend $1 on
So
security.
if you apply that integrated approach for risk assessment,
CIO is the owner of the security, not the CIO and other people.
Yeah, board is.
I-
Board is responsible for that.
I want to see how many business owners are here
The
because
board
I
is the
think
facilitator
this is
for the
getting
CEO.
heavier in the favor of security experts.
Security is with the board.
Anyways, I can say we move on.
okay.
Who will be the custodian of IT application? Obviously IT.
Okay, the last step in the roadmap, ready, is implement a security management system, and that would require having a security organization in place. That's the first step. You should identify who is involved and what are the roles and responsibilities with respect to security implementation, security framework, security management system. And then you have to have documented policies and procedures in place, like we talked about that, whether it is related to risk assessment, whether it is related to classification labeling, whether it is related to managing SIEM or DLP, you have to have documented policies and procedures that will govern the usage of technology and implementation of this management system. The next step is develop and implement awareness program. If you have a policy in place but nobody is aware of it, for example, we have defined what is the classification guideline, how to label information, but nobody knows about it. I would like to share one good example here from Aramco again. They were not limiting information security to their office area only. They were educating the children in the schools in the Aramco premises. They were calling in families to seminars to educate them about information security. As we discussed, the social networks, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and all of those things. So they were trying to educate the people. Like, okay, you are sitting back at home, but even then you are responsible for information security.
Educating the community.
Yes,
actually.
they are educating their community because Aramco is a kind of a company, they have like cities of their own. Dahran, Cake. So there are cities, it's not something like it's a plant or something like that, they have cities. So they have their own community, they have their own boundary line in which they have a city altogether. And they have everything, like they have more than 280 departments. They call it department, but for my understanding it is, each of them is more than a company. Like, for example, one oil producing plant is a department for them, but for us, it's a company. And they have more than 55,000 people working. But again, this was just to ensure that it's not just the people that you have in your office only, but maybe extending it towards their families. Because this might be a case that they have some information at home, or maybe discuss at home and that goes off. The next step, so this is the third step in establishing or implementing the security management system, and this is the key. Because if you have everything in place, you have the organization, you have the document policy procedure, and people don't know about it. They're shelved. No use, no benefit. The next one is perform compliance check. So once you have made people aware of it, then conduct regular compliance check. Are people following it? We said that this is the classification guideline and this is to be applied such that. Go different places and find out if people are applying classification guideline, are they labeling information as appropriate, are they handling it as appropriate, and similarly other practices. The last one here is improved security management system. Again, as I said in the process, once you have the performance measures in place, once you have the compliance check in place, then based on that information, you may be able to identify improvements in those systems. That's the 5-step, you can say, for implementing security management system. That goes a lot of details, but just to briefly describe that. What can help you? Typically, ISO 27001 is meant for it. So the first one is ISO 27001, that is the requirement standard for information security management system. And the second one is ISO 27002, and it's code of practice for information security control, and that provides you implementation guidance of the current version has 113 controls to guide about. We'll shortly go through this. So this is what our 5-step approach is ready. Realize your security and enterprise security needs, then evaluate your existing security arrangements and security posture, then assess enterprise risk, and then going through this last step, implement security management system. Besides that, it's defining the process to regulate the technologies. So taking through some of the best practices, some of the standards, just to briefly talk about it, like what we have talked about, that they help in establishing a security framework. The first one is ISO 27001, as already mentioned, it's a requirement standard for information security management system. It specifies the requirements for establishing, implementing, maintaining, and continuing improving any information security management system in the context of the organization. Again, context of the organization is important. That will define how rigorous it should be, how you can say comprehensive it should be. Because a small organization having small stakes may have lesser requirements, less, you can say, rigorous system in place, but an organization that has sensitive information being processed or shared or communicated, they may require a comprehensive or more rigorous information security system. This standard also helps you to activity-related risk assessment and treatment, because things are there that relate so that you should have risk assessment, risk treatment activity in place.
At what stage does this come into an organization's life?
Into an organization life, like we have talked about in the beginning.
I'm talking about, let's say, ISO 27000. Does it start at the startup level? Does it start when you're fairly mature and you've already got an X level of security in place? Where does it start?
It depends on
At least you should have the business processes in place, business functions in place, so that you know what you're doing, how you plan to do it.
यानी कंप्यूटर ब्यूरोज आ गए, कुछ लेवल ऑफ सिक्योरिटी चल रही है और उसके बाद जाके ये आता है.
It's not a, you can say,
Do you start with it day one, or do you start when you have enough and you say, okay, now it's time to let's implement something which will go manage?
It all depends on your business, and then, if you are into a business which is critical, customer facing, you may plan to start on the day one, because the customer will get confidence that you have this security system in place, their data is safe with you.
let me give
It
you
all
an
depends.
example.
But if you are running a back office, non-customer facing, maybe you can implement some of the controls from this standard,
Okay.
which are relevant, and over a period of time then you implement it.
Very simple, if we are running the facility of data warehousing and we are collecting the data for the different
But
companies
it
and
took a while
storing.
to get to that.
We need it from
Okay,
day
I
one.
will give you an example. I worked on a project that was for information sensitive organization, and they were working on a greenfield product. The facility was being constructed, and they initiated a program for security framework, like how we will manage information security in our work environment.
Within the
While the
Pakistani
building was being
environment,
constructed. Yes.
within the Pakistani environment, what stage does it come in? And a normal, state-run organization would stage this.
It's not a hard and fast rule when to begin it. It's to begin as early as possible. It's just like that. Like you don't have to wait for a loss to happen.
If you're talking about like FBR, and perhaps day one, if they want to launch a service for their stakeholders, perhaps day one they should have some of these controls. If you're talking about a style textile mail, which is a 200 spindle, maybe 2 years down the line,
So it will, like a good example given by him, it depends on the business nature of the operations. How critical, how sensitive they are. The more critical and the more sensitive they are, they will warrant information security in place from the beginning.
Just want to add one more thing to it. You just talked about the context of Pakistan. In the ISO register, which is an official register, there are about like 4,000 companies across the globe which are ISO 27001 certified. Now comparing it to India, because at times we normally tend to compare ourselves with them, there are only 16 to 17 companies in Pakistan, whereas there are 600 plus companies in India. And in comparison, out of those 17 companies, 50% of them are IT companies who are developing or producing revenue. So for them, the biggest motive is that we want to claim to our customers that your data is secure. Companies like Pakistan State Oil and companies like English biscuit manufacturers. Now, if in the context, if you would see, why would an English biscuit manufacturer would go into that? So it all depends that what is the context, why are you going for it? The biggest motivator, there is a survey, I can show you that slide, I have got it. In that survey, ISO, there's a company which conducts surveys, they put together that survey and said the biggest motive of 90% of the organization was first to get the customer confidence, and second was to have a baseline security management in place. That's it. So it's up to you, and many organizations in Pakistan exist who have this baseline, but they don't go for certification. I know many organizations in Pakistan who will say, all right, we just want to implement the crux of it. Certification, we don't want to.
Certification is a marketing tool.
Obviously, yes.
Yeah, most of it.
As long as, so the baseline, this standard provides.
Okay. So, talking more about it, like any ISO standard, it has a plan, do, check, act, process framework. And in the plan, as the standard says, you have to start with understanding the strategic need of information security in the organization, and then going through what interested party have, what is their expectation about this, what do they need. Like they can be business users, they can be the management, they can be other users in the organization. And then you have to identify the scope of the SMS, like it is going to cover the whole organization, a part of it, or just IT, or something else. And then you have to establish an SMS, information security management system, that will involve the security organization, the documented policies, procedure, and other things. Besides that, the next step is leadership, that the management has to have the commitment that should endorse, they should sponsor this program so that it is heard across the organization. And the next step is that you have to have an information security policy of the highest level of the organization, and that should trigger down to all parts of the organization. And one of the important aspects that is being said here is the organization for information security. How you are going to plan for implementing this ISMS, who is involved, and what are their responsibilities. They can be groups, they can be individuals. The next step is planning. The planning, basically action that you might be taking to address the opportunities, or if there are some hiccups, then how are you going to address them. And the next step is support, that would ensure that you have all the required resources available. It could be facility, equipment, human resources, and you have to build the required competence of the people, that they are able to perform the job they have been assigned. You have to create awareness, as we told. You have to have commitments, so communication in place, like a different level for different purposes. For example, incident management, for example, awareness, for example, performance indicator, and this kind of stuff. And the next step while you're doing it, in the first place is operation, and that requires operation planning and control. Like you have different policies, procedure defined. There are different people assigned to that, and they are supposed to do things at certain frequency with certain stuff to be performed. So what's the plan? When to do what? Like if you have an awareness program, when to do it? If you have to perform access reviews, how often you're going to do it? What needs to be checked? So these are kind of details that you have to work on. And besides that, you have to have information security risk assessment in place. You identify the risk. You have analyzed them, you have evaluated them, and you have come up with a treatment plan. Like how would you treat those risks across the organization? And this is ongoing thing in the information system, the security management system. Then the next part, check, comes in, where you have your performance evaluation done. It could be identifying, so you have to have the measures in place, measures of performance, like we talked about key performance indicator, this thing. So we are collecting data, we are analyzing them, and besides that, you have internal audit in place. And these internal audits basically provide you insight to compliance to what you have in place, the information security management system. And the management review is an opportunity to share the results and performance and status of information security management system related activities to the management. Last is ACT, that is the X phase of PDCA cycle, and that refers to the clause 10 improvement. And here we are referring to non-conformities related to information security management system and the corrective actions taken against those non-conformities. And finally, another part of that is that you have to always seek for continual improvement, coming from suggestions, coming from problem, coming from incidents that have happened in the past, learning from those things and finding out what can we do better. So this is, you can say, a general life cycle of ISO 27001, that is Information Security Management System requirement standard. This is complemented by ISO 27002, and that is code of practice. And basically, this is complemented by Information Security Management System. It has 18 domains. It has basically 18 clauses in there, but out of them, basically, there are 14 domains, as you can see on the screen. The first one is about information security policy, and that would require that an organization should have information security policy in place, and that governs all the information security management system related activities across the organization. The next part says describe the guidelines, like what organization should be in place with respect to implementing information security. The next one is human resource security, that talks about like, okay, what security measures should be taken when you're looking for people to join your organization, once they join you, and once they are leaving your organization or they are changing the job. The next step here is asset management, and that links with the risk assessment as well, identifying your assets, the owners, and all relevant information about that so that you can manage them as appropriate. The next one in asset management also talking about classification, labeling, and handling. Like you have identified assets, you have to classify them and handle as appropriate. Next domain is talking about access control at all levels, whether it is for the network or the operating system or the applications, whether it is privileged access or it is a normal business user access. All types of access controls are listed here. The next one